Take a look at completing the square, then this is the next part of the quadratic function chapter. So what completing the square is, everything that we look at when we're talking about quadratics looks like this. It's in this format here. We just change the a, b, and c to be numbers. So when you're completing the square, we want to change it from this format into this format here. So that is our aim, to do that. Now the whole point of changing into this second format is that it allows us to find different things. So it allows us to find a maximum minimum point. So what I'm talking about there is, for instance, I know that this graph is a positive x squared, so it's going to be a u for positive. It will allow me to find this coordinate here, this minimum point. If I had a minus x squared there, it would give me this, and I would be able to find this maximum point there. So that's the aim of this stuff. Right, let's take a look at how to complete the square. We're going to just do some basic ones today, and we'll do another couple tomorrow. So if I'm looking at this question here, the first thing that we're going to do is, this always follows the same pattern, is we open a bracket, as long as there's no number in front of the x squared, we open up a bracket and we write in x and we divide this by 2 and put it here. So that is going to be a minus 1. Okay, ignore the x. So get rid of the square, divide this by 2, get rid of the x. And what we do is we put that to the power of 2. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take that out to the side, and I'm going to have x minus 1 squared is just x minus 1 by x minus 1. So it's x minus 1 squared is equal to this. Okay, so I'm going to just multiply this out by multiplying that by that, and then that by that. So I'm just multiplying out my brackets like we would have done before. That's going to be x squared minus 1x minus 1x plus 1. So that's going to be x squared minus 2x plus 1. Now if you look at this, what my aim is to do is to get back to the original sum. So that's what I have when I multiply this out squared. So I have the first two parts, and that was my aim, because the last part is quite easy to get. How do I make this part become a minus 7, or a plus 7, sorry? All I have to do there is I have to add another 6 onto this. So for this bit here, that is this part, and I'm adding on a 6. So all I have to do then is put a plus 6 here, and there is my answer. That is in this format here. Okay, so why we do that then is we want to find this number and this number. And what that number tells us is that the minimum point is, I change the sign in this one and I leave the second one. So that'll be a 1 and that will be a 6. So I have a minimum point, because this is positive, so it's a smiley face. I have a minimum point at 1, 6. That's what I have. Okay, so let's try another one. They're a little bit tricky, I know. We'll keep going. We'll try another one just to kind of get a little bit of practice at these. If you want to pause the video and take them down as notes, you can. Okay, so this next question here, same idea. They're just asking us in a slightly different way. They're saying here that they want us to write in this format. Now, we don't always have something there. If there's a number in front of this, we will have an a, otherwise it's just like a 1. So for this one, first thing I do is I open up a bracket, and it's going to be something squared. I put in x, get rid of the square, divide this by 2, plus 4, and I ignore the x off it. I take that x plus 4 squared to the side, and I'm going to just multiply it out. Okay, so when I multiply this out, I'm going to have x by this and 4 by the second bracket as well. So that's going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16. Make that 16 a bit more obvious. Okay, so that is going to be x squared plus 4 and 4 gives me 8x plus 16. And if we go back to our sum, I can see that I have this bit here. That's what I wanted. So now all I need to do is try and see how am I going to get the last number. The last number is a minus 17 and I have a plus 16. So if that happens, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, right, well, I'm going to have to subtract a 16 to get me back to 0. And I'm going to have to, I'll just move this out a little bit so I have more space. I have to minus 16, now I'm back at 0. I have to minus another 17, that gets me back to minus 17. So this is what I have to add on here. To add on a minus 16, to get me back to 0, and then take away a further 17 to get me back to minus 17. So they add to give me minus 33. So with this, I have to subtract 33. So up here, I'm going to just write minus 33. And there I have it. I've completed my square. Okay, and the last thing that I have to pick out is, I've written it in that form, if I wanted to find the minimum point or the maximum point. In this case, I know this is going to be what shape? It's going to be a U-shaped graph, but positive. And I know that this minimum point here is going to be minus 4 and minus 33. So change the sign of the 1 in here and then leave that as the original sign. Okay, and that is how I'd finish that off if they'd asked me for the max or the min point. In this case, they didn't ask me for that, so I can leave out all the green bits there, and I have my answer there. Okay, so taking a look at one more then, if you would like to try this one, you can. This one is a little bit of a trick in it because of this number here, and I'll show you why, but if you want to give it a go, you'll spot it when you're doing it. I'm going to start this one now. So for this one here, I know I need to find the maximum or minimum of the graph, and they also use the word vertex, so just watch out for that vertex. Vertex just means the minimum or the maximum point. So for this one, what shape do we have? Our shape here is going to be a U shape. So that's a terrible U shape. I'm looking for this point here. I am looking for a minimum point. Okay, so what I have to do for this is same as what we were doing earlier. I'm going to take this thing here, this x squared and 5x minus 3, and what I have to do is I have to open up my brackets. They're going to be something squared. I'm going to put in my x, and I'm going to put in my plus, and I have to divide this by 2 and leave out the x. So I end up with this thing here. Now this is where it gets a little bit trickier, but we're going to follow the same method. Over on the side here, I'm going to write that I need to multiply x plus 5 over 2 by x plus 5 over 2. So when I multiply it out, I'm going to have x by x is going to give me x squared plus 5 over 2x plus 5 over 2x plus, check in the calculator if you want what they'll multiply it to give you, it'll be 25 over 4. So when I add them together, I have x squared, 5 over 2x plus 5 over 2x give me 5x plus 25 over 4. Okay, so what I want to do now is I have this part, so that's perfect, that's what I wanted. I need to get this. So how I get from here to here is I need to get back to 0 first of all. So to get back to 0, what I need to do is I need to subtract one of these 25s. I'm just going to make this have a little bit more room. I'm going to subtract one of those 25 over 4s to get me back to 0. And then I need to get back to minus 3, so I subtract another 3. The 25 there. So I need to now check and see what is all of this. This is the extra stuff that I need to add on. And I can see that when I check that in the calculator, that is minus 37 over 4. So all I need to do is I need to add on a minus 37 over 4 here. Okay. So they get a little bit trickier to look at or to work with when you have fractions, or when this number here isn't divisible by 2 evenly. You end up with fractions in it. But same rules apply for this one. They're asking me for my minimum point in this case. So my minimum point is going to be change the sign of the 1 inside the bracket. And then the other one remains whatever sign that it was. There is my minimum point of that graph. So if I was drawing that graph,